Being a professional speaker is simultaneously the greatest thing I've ever done, but also one of the hardest and most frustrating. I don't think it needs to be though. And I want to share with you 5 things that I wish I knew when I started 19 years ago that would have made the journey a lot easier for me. So stick around. Hey, welcome to Lead Loud. My name is Richard Mulholland. I am a professional speaker and also the founder of presentation powerhouse Missing Link. Now, as mentioned, I've been a speaker. It's been an incredibly life-changing thing for me. I've created friends all over the world. I've been lucky enough to speak on 6 continents and over 30 countries. It is like paid for a big part of the lifestyle that I have, but it's also raised my reputation and helped me grow my business. But it wasn't easy. And the worst part was I made it a lot harder than it needed to be. And so I want to try share with you. I was reflecting over the holidays. I wanted to share with you 5 of the things that on reflection, I wish that I'd done a little bit differently. Let's jump straight into that. The first thing is this. I wish I realized early on that you only need one talk. Okay, so here's the reason why most people have more than one talk. Most speakers have more than one talk when they start. It's because they take a brief. So you're trying to get out there, you contact an event company gets back to you and said, hey, can you speak about customer service? And you're like, yeah, I can. And then you spend all your time writing a talk on customer service. The next time another events company comes and say, hey, can you speak about the 4th Industrial Revolution? And you're like, oh, of course I can. And then you write a whole talk around that. By the way, both of these are topics that I have spoken about in the past because somebody came up to me and said, would you mind? And I was like, sure, bro. No problem. Here's the thing. There are 2 problems with this. One, you make it a lot harder to market yourself because then you're marketing you, the speaker, the person. And if you're not famous yet, that's going to be tricky. What you want to market is the problem you solve in the world. And the way to do that is to write just one great talk and get better and better and better at delivering it. And make that talk better and better and better until such time as if somebody has problem X, you're the person you're going to call to talk about that. One of my favorite speakers in the world, Dave Randall, he's got a talk called The Freak Factor. And I used to think he just does the same one over and over again, but he's better and better and better. And it's now got to the point that when I get to that bit in the talk and I'm with somebody and I'll say and I see the arm wrestling story coming in. I'm like, oh, this is the story I was telling you about. It's so good. And then he tells the story and every time it's better, every time I laugh, every time I love it, and every time I remember it a little bit more. This is why that is probably my favorite talk that I've ever seen because he gets better and better and better. And he understands he has just one talk. So that's the first thing. Do not fall into the trap of constantly creating new content because you think your audience needs something to be fresh. Remember, it might not be new to you, but it is new to them. And even if it's not new to them, the reason they're booking you is probably because they saw you deliver it somewhere else. They don't want something new. They want that. My favorite band, or one of my favorite bands, Crossfaith, if I went to see them play and they didn't play Monolith, I'd be pissed. I don't want originality. I want what I paid the ticket for. And so do your customers. That leads me to number 2. And this is a big thing for us, especially people who go through our public speaking program, is this. You don't need to be the expert. And I know this sounds counterintuitive, but it really, really isn't. There are two categories of speakers. You have the Olympiad and you have the journalist. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Blink. You know what Malcolm Gladwell isn't? And that, by the way, is one of the best-selling books on the topic in the world. You know what Malcolm Gladwell isn't? He isn't the world's leading authority on rapid cognition. What he is one of the world's leading journalists. He's one of the world's best researchers. And that's what we explain to the speakers we work with. You think you have this imposter theory because, well, I'm not the biggest expert in the world on this topic. That's cool. You can research your way out of it. Some of you know that every single morning from 9 to 10, every weekday morning from 9 to 10, I read for an hour, and the only books I read are books around presentation and professional speaking. And the reason is I want to read all my competitors' books. I want to research my way from being the journalist to being the expert. And after 25 years running a presentation company, I think I'm getting there. But that's what you need to do. You need to understand that if at the beginning you don't have all the answers, research it. When I wrote my new book, Here Be Dragons, over there, when I wrote Here Be Dragons, I knew that I wanted to know about certain topics in the book and combine that with my existing knowledge. So what did I do? I just went out there and I found the data, I looked for the studies, I brought it together and I packaged it my way for my audience. That's something you can do. So stop worrying that you don't have the expertise. Just find the problem you want to solve in the world and research your way around making that interesting. And by the way, the reason that is a double whammy bit of advice is because otherwise, if you are relying on your expertise, then you're relying on your story. And spoiler alert, they don't give a shit about your story. Your story as a speaker isn't that interesting. What they want to hear is about the information you have discovered as a researcher that you can give to them to make them smarter. Tell other people's stories. That's a freebie. Right. So that brings me to the next one. Peak end theory. I used to think that I wanted people, I prepared all of this perfect content and I thought everybody's going to remember everything I say. And at the end of my talks, people would come up to me and be like, or like, at the end of my talks, maybe a year later, and like, dude, you're the ninja drip guy. I cannot tell you how long I was a ninja drip guy for. It was a little bit of a bit that I did in my talks that people just loved.
That little bit of pee, the ninja drip, and it's on the inside and it's waiting, they're like, wait for it! And you're like, come on, wait for it! And then as you finish, I'm gonna and you know your husbands have done this. When they walk out of the toilets and they pretend the hand dryer is broken. Oh, look at this little thing! It's everywhere!
Now, here's the funny thing. For a while, I fought against that because I thought, like, I don't want to be the ninja drip guy. Yes, it formed part of a story that I was trying to tell about falling in hate with concepts. However, I wanted to be more than that. But I was caught up in my own story. I used to think this was a terrible thing, but it wasn't, because your goal is to be remembered. Now, what does this have to do with peak end theory? Well, peak end theory was a study that was done that basically said that after an interaction, people remember two things. They remember the peak and they remember the end. Now, my talks all perorate and I try bring all my points together by the end of a talk so I can get my core message together again right at the end of the talk. However, I forget that I've got another little bit of information, and that is the peak. And that's what I use for some entertaining, because I want them to remember me as being smart at the end of my talk. That's that big summation. And I want them to remember me being entertaining. Because remember, when you're a professional speaker, you are one part informer and one part entertainer. You're the hired help. You're the talent. Act accordingly. So I use peak end theory to make sure that the peak is something they remember me for is something fun and interesting and, just totally memorable and different. But then the end is where I summarize and summarize everything that I've said. So I want you to go read up a bit about peak end theory, and we'll put some links in the show notes below. But what I want you show notes, what is this, a podcast? In the show notes, my producer will drop those in there in the description below in the video. If you're watching this not on YouTube, head over to YouTube and you'll see it there. We'll put some links for you. I'm not putting them in LinkedIn because LinkedIn punishes you when you put links in there. So just go over to YouTube, and when you're there, hit subscribe, and you hit subscribe, maybe even hit like. You know what's really nice? Leave a bloody comment. The loneliest place in the world for me right now is my YouTube channel. Stop making me so lonely. Anyway, where were we? Read about peak end theory and work out in your talk, what is my peak? What is the cool, fun thing they're going to remember me for? And how am I going to summarize at the end? I know it seems like a small one, but it isn't. It's huge. Number 4. I talk about them booking you because you're novel and they remember you. That leads into this point, and that is this. Stages book stages. Now, the assholes are going to tell you things like, oh, don't speak for free at events. People ask you to speak for exposure. I can't pay my kids' school fees with exposure. What are you? Are you like, what are you saying you can't pay? What is marketing other than exposure? What else do you pay your kids' school fees with? If the world knows where you're at and they want you, right? That's exactly how they're going to book you to pay your fees. You need to be speaking for free. If you are not booking gigs, give gigs away over and over and over again, but give away the right gigs to the right audience. Maybe decide that I want to be, and next week I'm doing a video on the intersection. I want to be the world leading expert of presentation in the HVAC industry. Then speak for free at HVAC conferences and events. Become that person for them. Then your domain expertise combined with your craft, that intersection, you win. That's how you can be an expert straight away. But you only get that. You only become that expert by doing your talk. People buy talks mostly from the stage. You want to generate those stage leads because you're out there doing such a great job that somebody comes up to you after the gig and says to you, hey, listen, I've got a conference coming up in a few weeks. I'd love you to come and speak there. And again, this goes back to my point number 1 about having only one talk. You don't need tons of talks. You just need to have one really good one. That's the one they want. That's their monolith. This leads me then to the final tip for today, and that is this: the power of stage marketing, to understand what stage marketing does. If I just spoke about marketing from the stage to get other gigs, the real marketing that you can do from the stage is you can sell pretty much anything. Here's the reality. The best way to get a big payday for public speaking is to get a big payday from public speaking. And I promise you, I wish I understood this earlier. And it all ties back up. If you go back to what I was saying at the beginning about having only one talk, I didn't want to do that because I wanted to be seen as multidimensional and smart, and my ego got in the way over and over and over again. However, if I was smart, what I would have done is only speak about presentation, public speaking, leadership communication, because anytime that I speak about those things, instead of just getting booked for more gigs, somebody comes up and says, can you help us with this? Can you, train some of our leaders? Can you help us create your company sales deck? Now, the answer for Richard Mulholland as a speaker is no, but the answer for Richard, the founder and chief evangelist of Presentation Powerhouse Missing Link, is hell yes, we can. And that's why later on in my career, you see me speaking more and more and more around the topics that my business can do. Why? Because I want to generate downstream revenue. Social media marketing, we found to be hard. Stage marketing, it's so easy. I am the leader of a business. I'm the thought leader. I've got to evangelize for my team anyway. So why not be out there speaking to our customers at industry events and become the expert that way? Because the expertise you generate from being asked to speak on a stage and by doing a good job is unlike anything you've ever seen before. People naturally assume you're an expert because why else would you be there? Cannot speak to you enough about the power of stage marketing. It is the greatest marketing tool in your business that you're currently not using. And I think that's something you should remedy. And I guess if you are going to remedy that, then the bonus tip would be this: get coached. Don't do this journey alone. Now, we have a presentation or public speaking mentorship program called Story to Stage. We've got a new cohort starting soon. It's the professional speaking mentorship program. And I would really, really love you to join it. You can go to storytostage.co. Again, links down below to check out. We've got a new cohort starting in a few weeks. However, you don't have to work with us. If you want to work with somebody closer or do something in your area, there are professional speaking coaches all over the world. Get one of them. You don't want to have to learn this all the way. You want to learn from other people's mistakes. So the small investment, on average, most of these programs cost about the same amount, like 1 or 2 speaking gigs that you'll get when you're at cruising altitude. Why would you not spend the money to do that? So that's the challenge for you. Go out there and find somebody that can teach you to do this a little bit better. And I think you'll find it very, very rewarding. And in fact, if you want to do that now, if we're on the call, go to storage.co for our next cohort. And the promo code is at some time in the call, you've got to do this. I will give you $500 off the program just because you did that. And some of you will be like too proud to do that. And I'll say $500, easiest $500 I've ever made. So definitely go over to storystage.co. If not that, get help. But for the most part, really, really embrace. The big message here is to embrace the wonderful world of public speaking. It will change your life as it has changed mine. Until next time, lead loud.